I forgot to.
Hey, thanks, David, for joining. I'm actually on my cell phone. I'm not home, but I'm trying to navigate this on here. So I can't see anyone other than one person, whoever talked last. So I'm glad you had a chance to join us. So we with Lance resigning, we just finished nominating, and Mike has accepted to serve as the chair of the finance subcommittee. So we have a chair, and we were looking for someone to serve as secretary, since he is presently secretary and indicated, you know, he doesn't want to do both. So that kind of brings you up to speed. I don't know, do you have any interest, David, in doing that?
I do not.
Okay, so where we left it for now is that we do have a resignation from Maggie. We have one from Montague, and we just had one from Lance. So what we should try to do is, as we're looking for replacements, to see if we can, it'd be nice to pick up 2 more people now on the finance subcommittee. So maybe we could encourage people that join that, you know, have an interest in the financial part. So, so we left it that both Lynn and Jane had indicated that they would be willing to serve as co-secretaries and just alternate each meeting until we get a permanent secretary or one person to do that. So Mike, so David, since they are the 2, would you consider making a nomination then for co-secretaries of Lynn and Jane?
I so move.
Well, let's clarify that Jane and Lynn are willing to do that.
Okay.
That wasn't part of my motion.
Well, I always ask, are they willing to accept it? And we we heard Jane say, who said okay?
I did.
Lynn said okay.
Lynn said okay.
I'll say okay too.
I'll do it together with Jane if she's willing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you, guys.
Okay, so David made the motion, and are you going to second that, Mike?
Yes, I will second that.
Okay, you want to call for a vote? Because you can see what's going on. I can't.
Sure,
and you're the chair.
Okay. All in favor?
Let's not vote, Lynn.
I agree.
Hey, then it would be a tie and it failed. You don't do that.
Okay. Well, are you 2 abstaining then?
No,
Jane's a yes.
I'm giving you a hard time.
Okay.
So can you see, Mike? Is it unanimous? Because I can't see.
It looks unanimous. Yep.
Okay. So that can be recorded. So I'm going to be a spectator now. So you've reorganized. Would you? I don't have the agenda in front of me because we were in the car, but you know that was the major business at hand. Would you mind having David kind of give us a review from the financial aspect of? So Warwick had a town meeting, and they're looking at pulling out of the Pioneer District and exploring options. Can you give us a little update on that, David?
Before we go there, let's clarify who's recording the minutes today. And the meeting is being recorded, so whichever one of us takes care of the minutes, we can do it from the recording.
Correct.
So we can get in touch with you, Greg, right?
Right. I'll tell you what, I will volunteer to do the minutes for today.
Super.
It's a short meeting, and then you guys can work out who does the next one.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
What a great chair. Good. That resolved that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So you get to enjoy this meeting. Is David still there? Because I can't see anybody.
So Warwick voted to exit the Pioneer District. We had previously voted at a special town meeting to leave K through 6. Desi Commissioner questioned whether we could do that or it would involve a amendment to the Pioneer District, and
Oh.
none of the town select board members or finance committee members or my fellow school committee members weighed in with an opinion up or down on that. We're concerned that the proposed new district agreement would remove our ability to leave the district without the permission of the other member towns. That's in the new, not yet in effect. So we used our annual town meeting and made our move before we had to have an argument about whether the new district agreement is an amendment or a, because if it's treated as an amendment, 3 other towns could vote for it. 3 other towns could establish a district agreement that requires 3 towns to agree that you can leave. So we're leaving preemptively. We're leaving in order to reestablish our local elementary school. And there was a pretty strong sentiment that after 70 years of affiliation with Pioneer, we'd like to, at least in the short run, maintain that option for Warwick's kids in secondary. So we've started negotiating a transition agreement, and we would, and we're hoping to negotiate a tuition agreement with Pioneer for junior and senior high school.
Yeah, perfect. So David, so they never voted the regional agreement as amended with recommendations that the Hart Committee had, right? So the present agreement is still in effect, and they took no action on that, right?
That's correct. It has not been brought before the towns for action.
So from a political standpoint, it seemed to me that they were kind of making amendments to many of the changes that the Hart Committee had. And when they came to the section about how a town could leave, it appeared that the Pioneer Committee looked and saw that, wait a minute, it's silent on it, so they could do whatever they wanted. And I thought that might have been the reason why they just said, hey, you know what, we're not moving this forward right now. We're just going to sit on it.
Well, the current agreement is silent on it, except, well, it's not totally silent. It says you have to pay off your indebtedness, and
yeah,
what that's going to mean with respect to the post-retirement obligations, I'm not sure. I figured it would just be an assessment, a basis established, and a pay-as-you-go assessment would come Warwick's way. But folks are talking about cashing it out, and I think that would take special legislation in order to make it even bondable. So
I don't think that's going to. I don't think you're going to be able to do that, but that's up for another conversation. So, okay. So anyway,
Warwick has voted to leave the Pioneer District, and Warwick is in the Pioneer District until it's we're in this fiscal year, which just started.
Okay.
So David, since your vote was the 15th of July, I think that the current district agreement says you have to give a year's notice. Does that mean next June 30th, or does it mean the following June 30th?
Well, the current district agreement's already been abrogated by legislative acts, and we're meeting with former Representative Kulik on Friday. He's going to help us craft our legislation.
But there's not. But the only one part of it has been abrogated.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean more of it can't be.
Oh.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm totally outdated in this, David. My experience has been it's at least a year process to complete and to join, you know, another, whether it be a union or whatever. But I saw the motion was like as soon as possible, or and then expeditious. You know, I forget what the words were, but it basically implied to be able to do it as soon as you could.
Right.
So
and I fought off attempts to actually put a date on it, because then if we missed that date, then would that vote be become invalid? it's as expeditiously as possible and figure
Yeah,
out
yeah.
what that is.
That was probably a smart move, because you're right. Once you tie it down and you miss your deadline, and that's part of emotion, and then everything, becomes moot. So that was a good move. All right. So that being said, we have the consultants that, we've been in communication with. Mark was trying to finish things up on the report. He was well aware of Warwick's, motion. And so he and I talked, and I said, everything's the way that it was when for the purposes of the report, complete everything as you would. He is doing the spreadsheets and putting in an addendum that will give a review of everything that you would find instead of just citing the website with the information. He's going to put in the appendix a little review of what the reader would find if you go to the website. So that'll make it easier, because to peel back all the layers of the onion when you're in the website would just take a long time, because you'd be hunting around. So I'm hoping that, that will help out. He's going to give us access to his spreadsheets, and we'll figure out how to put those on our website, so that as we go forward and we look at finances and we want to try to play with numbers, that we would have an Excel spreadsheet on our website to be able to do that. So he was just trying to figure out the mechanics of how that could happen. So that's where I left off my conversation with him. I think that regardless of what Warwick does, this may be an opportunity if we end up looking at something bigger, to be able to play with the numbers for the impact of, how Chapter 70 would work out in different scenarios. You have school choice and you'll have a deduction. I have no idea what the impact will be. You probably do, David, on the Chapter 70. What would you actually get if you're on your own? Would it cost more, the same, or less?
Well, we know we're walking away from a lot of transportation money, but that's part, in my view, that's part of the whole flawed system. Is 70 years ago we started chumming the water with free transportation to combine, and this is where it's gotten, Warwick. So we think that our own locally operated, very, very small elementary school will be able to capture a lot of cost savings and and get out from under an awful lot of overhead. The biggest concern I have has to do with special needs and going from 10% of a larger risk pool to 100% of a risk pool that's 10% of the original. You'd think that would be the same exposure, but it's not. And the circuit breaker provides some stop loss on it. So.
We can talk some more. I'm very interested in that's all new territory, so that'll be kind of fun to explore and see what options are. So we're going to proceed. I am thinking that Warwick is still, until that becomes official, that we're still part of because it was the towns that voted to look at the 6-town regional.
We're still in the district, Alan. Nothing's changed, with that respect. And when I'm a school committee member, which I'm doing right now, I'm here for the interests of the Pioneer School Committee. So as long as I can, do that, I'll be with you.
Great.
Alan, I don't know if you know, but Sue O'Reilly resigned from the Pioneer School Committee, so we're down to 2 members from Warwick.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, let's talk. Yeah, she was terrific. We can talk offline another day, David.
Sure.
I
think, if Warwick does in the end peel off, we're looking at aligning with Peter Sam and Orange Elementary in a supervisory union.
Yeah.
It might make a combination with Gill make even more sense. We're kind of far in Warwick from Turner's Falls and Gill. So, or we may end up looking at some larger piece of organization. I frankly think that tiny schools like Gill Montague and Pioneer ought to be sharing a superintendent, not having one each.
I agree with that.
I would agree with that 100%. And who knows where that would end up. All right. Thank you for the update. And I'm sorry to hear about Sue. I want to talk to you more about that as a follow-up later. All right, Mike, what else was on the, so just I guess we're going to get a draft report from the consultants. Is that your understanding, Greg? I'm trying to remember where we left off. I think that's where we left off.
Yeah, right now that we're waiting on, they have about 95% of this completed. They ran into some difficulty when Tanya went on vacation, which was unexpected. And therefore, they needed to get her input on the 6-year projections of a combined district. So they wanted to be able to run those numbers by both Tanya and Joanne, and that's what they're trying to finish up now.
Okay. And then is it your understanding they're going to send that to the finance subcommittee to just put their eyes on it?
Well, I think the plan was they were going to get back in touch with you and me to let us know that the report was completed, so that we can then find out, where it stands in terms of if there's anything outstanding or things that they may still have questions about. But then the idea was that we would schedule another meeting with the full board. If we want to, during that meeting, request that the draft be set, I have mixed feelings about, having it sent to the finance committee ahead of time. I think it probably would be best to have the draft sent to the full board so everybody has a chance to see their presentation, hold, as I put out in the plan, hold their questions to the end, and then we all can set up our own meetings to, break off and discuss the educational and the financial parts of it in our own subcommittees. And then we would form our own questions to come back to the consultants, and they would take whatever questions that we vetted so that we don't have duplicate questions, and that we are not asking questions that we can't answer amongst ourselves, and then send those back to the consultants before they give a larger presentation to the full community in the fall.
All right, that sounds like a plan. The only thing that I'm wondering is, I know that there would not be any substantive changes. We can't start, saying, hey, could you change this or this spreadsheet, or we're looking for that. We couldn't do any of that, but just for a cursory look through to make sure, names are right and districts are right. And today's agenda had Berniston not spelled correctly, just sort of cosmetic, just look through and make sure everything is copacetic. If as long as everyone understood that certainly would not hurt, right?
Right. I think that's going to be part of the time between the first meeting that they give their presentation. They'd like to just be able to give the presentation and walk us through from 30,000 foot level. Let us then take the report and really drill down into it and do exactly what you're asking, which is to look for clarifications, typos, where things may be ambiguous, and then maybe have another meeting on our own and see,
okay.
Right. And then we come up with the changes that we want to present to them, as well as any questions that we can't answer amongst ourselves.
All right, so they're presenting a draft report with the understanding that we're just looking at it from a you know, a grammatical and typo and like if something totally doesn't make sense kind of perspective. But other than that, it's pretty much formatted and done, but it's still considered a draft, correct?
Right.
Okay. All right, well then I guess that's the update. When we hear from them, they'll let us know when they have that finalized and we can schedule a meeting. How's that sound to you, Mike, in the Finance Committee?
Well, Lynn and Jane and David can chime in. I mean, that sounds good to me up until we get to the point about talking about the community meeting. And that's not on our agenda, so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it now. But I did share my thought that we ought to think about, I mean, my understanding is that the consultants are going to give us a good deal of information. That information will be at least partly based on some assumptions. I know that Jane has expressed a desire to discuss some of those assumptions and possibly even recommend different assumptions. And I think that would be a good idea if we did that. At least consider the possibility that we might want to tweak the information that has been given us, at which point it seems to be, it becomes a question whether it's useful for the public to hear the consultant's original version or the committee's amended version, because really we're the ones, certainly the full board are the people who have been tasked to study this and come up with a recommendation to the community. That's not the consultant's job, that's our job.
Yeah.
So I just want to make it clear that we don't sort of hand that off to the consultants and say, okay, they're going to tell us.
I agree with that, Mike. I think we, you know, that the meeting with the public in the fall is really, that's up to us. However we want to format that. However,
I mean, an informational meeting of some sort is probably a good idea just to let people know what's going on. But I think we should, have another discussion when it's on the agenda about what our expectations of how that'll work will be.
Yeah, so I'm hearing two things. First of all, the consultants need to wrap it up. So the assumptions that they presently have, they're gonna run with that and they're gonna finish their report. They'll give that, and that's the broader one. Because we're having spreadsheets and whatever presentation they give, because we're having spreadsheets, the finance subcommittee at that point can then we'll hear what the public has to say and what questions they may have during the public presentation, but then the finance committee members can be listening very carefully and framing questions and listening to what the public's concerns are and what they like or don't like about the assumptions. And then the finance committee can then run with that, put in the tweaking, as you call it, of the various assumptions, create your own spreadsheets by plugging in those numbers, and then playing with that as we go forward and figure out, do we have a recommendation, or are we expanding and looking at other options? Is that consistent with what you just said, Mike?
It's not quite what I just said, but it sounds fine.
Okay. I just want to be careful
Again, I
that
think
we're not selling to the consultants, hey, listen, we don't want you to use 2% or 2.5% or whatever they use. Instead, can you use this? That horse is already out of the barn.
No, they're going to give us what they give us, but that's just it. What they give us, we even at the finance committee subcommittee level may want to look at what they give us and say, gee, we don't, we'd like to see how other scenarios play out.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
And I think that giving the public the opportunity to offer suggestions also at some point is a good idea. I mean, the more the merrier.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
I think that the committee is the one that should lead the presentation to the general public. We can have the consultants there for their expertise, but I don't think the consultant should be doing the presentation to the general public.
I think that's the plan. I think that was the plan all along.
Oh, that wasn't the way I read it in your email.
Okay,
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, they will be a part of the presentation, but if I put it that way, we are really the ones that give the presentation to the public.
Because I think if the consultants are doing the most of the presenting to the public is not going to ask questions. I think they'll question us, but I don't think they're going to question the consultants. And they're also going to say, oh, these are the same consultants that the Heart Committee had. So we don't.
We're gonna get timed out in a second. So if you guys want to
Okay.
log back on, sorry about that.
okay.
Well, I'm going to
And
have to go. Yeah.
And let me just say that, again, I agree with Jane, but this is not on our agenda for today. So
Right.
I don't want to get too far down the road of certainly making decisions. We should
Okay.
have this discussion with the full board once we have the draft report.
All right. So the next meeting will be scheduled after we have the draft report.
Well, that is on the agenda because is the finance subcommittee comfortable with waiting until we get a draft report to have another meeting? Because I think, Jane, you had suggested that maybe having a meeting before then.
I did, and